recording on my own computer right now, and maybe we will just share it with others who cannot take it, who cannot make it. But we hope they still can join us later today. And actually, we can take a minute of glory and network. It's okay, it will be recorded. No worries, it's your minute of shining. You can network and just brag whatever you want to brag about yourself, right?
I have to order food for me and my kids, so that's.
Okay.
That's essential.
So
That's
I'm gonna be. You'll probably see me on the phone doing that.
that's essential.
I have
See?
this, and then I have another meeting after this. So.
Multitasking.
Yes, we are scheduled to start to be online 6 to 7:15, 7-ish, something like that. Cynthia will have the very specific message to deliver, and we want to make sure we will answer all your questions. But I also want to onboard more people who are joining us right now. And I do want to know who is in the room because it helps actually, helps everyone. It helps you to experience the tribe. It helps you to experience what's doable and how you can benefit from each other. One of the open hubs value proposition is not just trying to sell you something. Take it what I have, take it, take it, take it. No, but just to get the synergy effect out of the collaboration from the tribe. So that's what we do want to see happen. Mike, I see you. I'm so happy to see you. Mike is a
Awesome.
student of Open Hub, and I'm really proud by him. So happy to see him. Ryan, how about if we'll start with you? Just 1 minute. Introduce yourself. What's your objectives? What's your background? And we will just move on and you will have a chance to order the food. Okay? Deal?
And unmute.
Yeah, please.
I'm interested in knowing about the data analytics at large, different applications, different software packages, etc.
Good. Just let us know.
Nothing specific at this point.
Nothing specific. I see.
Try my primary computer doesn't have a camera or mic, so that's why I'm coming up with my Chromecast. Coming up on my network.
Totally fine,
Oh,
Ryan.
That's fine.
Shut my primary down.
Okay. How about Ryan?
Yeah. Hey. Should I just give you some of my background and then?
Just very quick, short.
Okay.
This is the minute of glory, bragging, right?
Well, I've been working for what is now called SiriusXM Pandora for this year will be 20 years. I started right out of college as an intern before we opened to the public, and I've been with them ever since. I have a music technology background, and in 2018, I got very interested in data science and machine learning and trying to merge those two. So I have a goal of working for an audio streaming company of some sort, or maybe pivoting within the company. I'm just trying to get skills to be able to do that. I started a project portfolio, and I've been taking classes on and off. So yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
I think this boot camp would be so beneficial for you because we have one synergizer, Cynthia, who will be accommodating all different needs and will put you into the collaboration in the specific puzzle when you can learn from each other for sure. But she can do amazing magic.
Well, and also encourage people to take their specific domain knowledge and bring that to the table.
Exactly.
So music and audio is a fantastic way to do that. So
Sounds amazing. Thank you, Ryan. You're free to order the food. Next one. How about
Thanks.
Shakur? How about you?
Basically, I'm a PhD in management and I'm a business instructor at the City College. And I've got almost a decade of teaching experience. We get into business administration. And for the last couple of years, I'm been interested into data science, and I've been learning on and off, like YouTube and all those related platforms. develop an interest, and I'm trying to somehow cultivate the research experience with the data science, and probably might want to get into data science in the future.
Nice.
May I ask where you're located?
I'm at Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Okay, who is brave to go next? Mike, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm Mike McIsaac. I've been an IT guy forever. Work on Linux on the mainframe and ZBM. And I think Hudson Valley Tech is great. I wish I could help more, but I just want to tune in and see what I can learn tonight. Thank you, everybody who made this possible.
Awesome. Excellent.
He radiates the energy and attitude of developer, always learning and putting into work. That's great. Great to hear. How about two ladies? I see two lowers.
Yeah.
Hello. I'm just, I don't know, I'm crashing your party because I saw your invite in Slack channel for the Hack Upstate, and I'm the new careers in code career coach. So I have a background in programming from years and years and years ago, and I used it throughout my career, but I haven't actually done much lately. So I need to do some more learning so I can help the people looking for jobs a little better. So I'm just scouting things out.
Awesome. This is
Yeah.
such a good fit.
Mm.
Cynthia, would you like to address why?
Oh, there's so many reasons why, because there's a lot of, let's put it this way, the workplace and the workforce needs specific skills, and these are not always taught in the college environment, or they're not taught at the level of depth. And having someone that is familiar with the industry and what they're looking for and aligning that with the curriculum that's developed to address that is really important. So that's something that having a pathway for students to go out into the field is really, really essential. So cool. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm excited to help.
Awesome.
But Cynthia herself, first of all, of course you will get the certificate, but also getting the referral from your professor. And Cynthia is teaching in two major universities and designing curricula for data science for quite a few.
Mhm.
So this is the asset we have local here in New York, and she's willing to make it affordable for local people. This is amazing. So our dreams come through, and we just created such a intense, I would say, content which worth like at least a couple years in the major university, all
Mhm.
packed, well packed into 26 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be very intense, but also it will be responsive in that we can grab data that is current and relevant given the time. So it's very flexible and agile at the same time.
Okay, Laura, it was great to see you. I'm so happy to be connected with Hack Upstate. I love them.
Yeah.
Happy to
Yeah.
support, happy to collaborate. How about
Yes.
another Laura? Esmond.
Hey, I think you're talking about me. Can you hear me? I'm at a place right now where I can't talk. I was just trying to listen.
Okay.
Okay. All right. No
But
problem.
maybe you can chat because it would be very nice to know your background. We are trying to have to combine the group into the certain way just to make it the most beneficial. And also it allows Cynthia to be agile as much as possible and adjust the curricular towards the level of people we have.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more minute. We can have someone else introducing yourself.
Gonna jump in here before you forget about me.
Oh yeah, sure. Sure.
I work with Cyber Guardian Consulting Group's an IT company up in Kingston. I'm in charge of business development, and analytics is pretty much my part of my job description. I've been using analytics on and off for many years, and just need to bring my skills up to date.
Wonderful, wonderful.
This is
And can I
amazing.
ask what tools you're using? Software, if you know.
The last thing we used was something called Campaign Monitor.
Okay, all right.
I've used Google Analytics and AdWords and you know, and doing all that sort. But my CEO, who is very proud of his ability to program better than anybody else in the world, says that analytics slows the website down too much. So he has something else which I am not familiar with yet. But you know, it's if I'm going to be selling and trying to grow the business, I need a far more comprehensive data approach than we have right now.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful that you have the background though. And I think what's really important to remember is that foundation can be applied regardless of software. So you have the principles, and that's really important. So it's just a matter of picking a different tool and applying those principles. So that's important.
Well,
That's
I keep on saying that you have to find the right tool, and if you use it in the wrong way, it's like trying to drive a nail with the claw end of a hammer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that's not, you don't want a one size fits all approach, and it actually has to work for that use case. Yeah.
Let me ask, thank you, Gerald. I want to talk with you afterwards because we definitely have something in common. And I do want to hear from Juan, Jamie, Ruwan. Anyone is ready to introduce?
Hey.
Jamie. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Jamie. I saw the post in the Hack Upstate channel as well. I've dabbled in data analytics stuff. I've done some Python, and I'm kind of a spreadsheet fanatic, but I would like to be able to use it better. And so I saw this and I was like, oh, well, I can at least hop on this call. So yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we actually focus in our first class in the boot camp with using Excel and Google Sheets. So data can be put into many different platforms, and that's exactly where we start. So I think you'd be very comfortable.
This sounds
Awesome.
amazing. Yay. So I think for the time constraints, let's let Cynthia start this show.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Are you
then
ready?
we will have more. Yes, I am. And then we will have more networking. So I'm starving to hear more from John Holland. Hello, I miss you, Joanne, Ruben. Anyone else who wants to brag or just network a little bit? Okay. Cynthia, the show is yours.
All right. Okay. Well, welcome to tonight's info session. I'm Dr. Cynthia Marcello. I have a Doctor of Management in Information Systems and Organizational Leadership. And I have a Master's of Business Administration in e-business and a Master of Science in IO Psychology. And I've worked in the field for 25 years, the field of IT, that is. And I currently teach. I'm a professor. I develop course materials for several universities, as Yulia said. And I love data. So I'm a former SQL DBA, and I also, in my IT consulting business, did a lot of a variety of tasks related to software development and database-driven applications. So I have a huge passion for education and working with folks and just getting them to the next level. And so I hope that that passion comes through, and tonight's information session is beneficial to you. And what I'm thinking is perhaps that if you have questions and you want to ask, Yulia and I can work together. And yes, I'm a hacker as well. Shh, don't tell anyone. That's the other hat. Hint, hint, wink, wink. One of the things that we like to do when we have these information sessions is if a question, if you have a question, I don't want you to forget your question. So if you want to ask it, and if I miss it in the chat, Yulia will stop me and say, we have a question. I'd like to entertain it right away, because we want this to be an organic dialogue. So basically tonight's information session is talking about the boot camp that is starting on March 3rd. And I'm going to go into all the different, I have a little presentation for you. And like I said, if you have questions as you're going along, and maybe you're jotting notes or what have you, don't hesitate to ask questions. All right. Does that work, Yulia?
Yes. And let's put the flow questions, logistical questions to the end toward the end.
Okay, all right, we can do that, absolutely. So, you know, we need to do it in a way that is conducive to the process, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share. Is that all right, Yulia? Are you ready for me? All right, fantastic, fantastic. All right, so let me get this started. All right, hopefully everyone can see. We are, and this is, by the way, captioned. Hopefully it picks it up okay. I'm testing this technology to make sure that, you know, we're accessible for folks that maybe have a hard time hearing. So that's something that a new technology that I'm trying. So in case you're wondering what it is across the screen there. All right, so I want to say welcome to everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about what is involved with data analytics, why it's needed. It is an essential field to get into. There are many, many career opportunities, I will tell you. I get jobs emailed to me on a daily basis. I have all kinds of bots sending me things that if there was more than one person of me, I would probably take all the jobs because they're so interesting. But we're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to focus on what the bootcamp covers, and keep in mind that this is an information session. So the level of depth you'll experience in the actual bootcamp. But if you're wondering about, hey, is this covered? Do we go into this? Don't hesitate to ask. All right, we're here to answer your questions. So who is a good fit for data analytics career? Many folks. Let's see, do you fit into the data analyst category? Well, have you ever used data to generate insights for an organization or yourself? If yes, then you're a candidate for data analytics. Believe it or not, if you handle your own personal budget or you handle decision making based on input that you receive from a device or from an individual, what have you, that really is used on a regular basis to make decisions. You use that to gain insight. And so, you know, I want you to believe that, yes, you can do that. So what I want to do is focus on the different flavors of analytics that are out there. Descriptive analytics is basically taking data that is historical, that came in the past, you know, and describes what happened or what is happening now. Now that data is sitting in a sort of a static state, if you will, and it has the ability to describe what happened, but if you don't analyze it, it just sits there. It becomes like an archive. It doesn't get used. And so descriptive analytics is used to open up that Pandora's box and see exactly what happened so that we can learn from our past, or we can determine what is this current state and can we change for the future. Diagnostic analytics is using historical data, same thing, but it adds that one component, the why factor. So we determine what happened, but we also determine why it happened, which is very important because then we're able to make very specific prescriptive recommendations to move forward. All right. So let's move on to predictive. Predictive is basically, can we use our historical data to forecast possible outcomes in the future? We develop statistical models. We apply algorithms to test and training data sets. We have, you know, training the data to basically learn from the patterns that it sees, and then running it against a test set to see, is this actually, this model worth putting out there to, you know, help people in production. So we can predict the future or forecast using predictive analytics. And then last is prescriptive. And prescriptive is basically taking that data, that history, making a recommendation for a course of action based on our analysis that we have run. So obviously you want to be able to action something and move it forward. And that's what prescriptive analytics does. Based on what we know, we're going to prescribe, you know, X, Y, and Z recommendations or courses of action that you can take as a result, and also determine the possible outcome as a result as well. All right, so the career opportunities are huge. Every industry needs data analysts. So in our boot camp, there are skills that are needed to succeed in the boot camp, but they're not assumed that you have those skills. So on the right side of the screen here, it talks about the skills that you will need to have at the end of the boot camp, not in the beginning of the boot camp. That is a little confusing for some folks, but you want to have at least some understanding of math and statistics when you are done with the boot camp. If I haven't taught you all the formulas and the statistics, I haven't done my job. So if you don't like math, by the time we get done, you will like math, you will have a better relationship with it. And we're not going to do hard math, just so you know. We're not going to do calculus. A lot of what we do is algebraic type math, statistics, you know, percentages and things like that. So don't let that math aspect freak you out or get you nervous, okay? Pattern recognition, being able to see patterns, looking at data sets and recognizing where there are clusters of similarity or difference, right? You want to be organized, and all of us like to get better organized at things. We sometimes realize that, hey, I'm not as organized as I could be. So I'm going to recommend to you in the bootcamp, you know, how you can better organize your workflow and using standard frameworks that are used in the industry. Communication is also something that's essential. So in the bootcamp, you're working with a cohort of individuals, and we will communicate on a regular basis using a variety of tools. And that will actually help you with the process of communicating as a team, communicating your findings, communicating your aha moments with your data. So there's a lot of different things, and documentation, of course, is essential. Excel and SQL are both two powerful tools that you need to understand how to use. Once you're done with the boot camp, you will be able to use both Excel and SQL. SQL will be used inline, so in code, but I will also explain to you how to do basic select statements and things like that, so that you can use those to get at large databases outside of your system. Python, R, Tableau, and Power BI are also skills that the industry needs. Those are also things that you will be learning in the bootcamp as well. So that's kind of like a laundry list of stuff that, that you will be learning. The other thing to remember is that there are additional tools that are essential for the process of data analytics, and those tools we will be learning about because and Tableau, by the way, is awesome, right? Power BI is also awesome, but also things like Anaconda, right? Being able to have different environments loaded on your system so that you can manage those environments using Git and GitHub desktop, and being able to organize each version of the code that you're working on, share it with other individuals. Those are additional tools that you'll be using in your workflow. So there's a whole laundry list of tools that you will learn, and those tools are needed by the industry. All right, so I'm going to jump back over here. You want to add data analytics to your current core discipline, or also known as knowledge domain. So I don't care if you're planting flowers and you're a horticulturist, or you're a farmer, or you're a machinist, or you work in music, or you work in business, or you work in healthcare, you work in legal, you work in accounting, finance, any industry, any knowledge area, domain that you can think of, hospitality industry, retail, there is a need for data. And now, as you know, organizations are becoming even more competitive, they rely on data extensively to be able to make those business decisions. So what you will see is a lot of folks either switching careers out of their core discipline area and going into data, or marrying their current domain with data analytics, okay? I've had folks that are really heavily into robotics, as I am, by the way. That's another nerd passion that I have. And so, for example, I've had folks who are working on agriculture, and they're using farm equipment that have robotic sensors on them. And those sensors are gathering data about the crops and the soil and the pests and the, you know, different dynamics of the field, and sending that data back to the mothership, if you will, and being analyzed to determine, do we have enough moisture in the ground? Is, you know, do we have maybe some kind of fungus or something growing on the plants? You know, what caused that fungus? There's so much data that you can gather. So again, there is, you know, traffic patterns that can be analyzed, and so on and so forth. So the key is acquiring the skills, and that's where you need to be able to do that in an environment that is safe to do it. Where if you make mistakes, it's not such a bad thing. We all learn from mistakes, right? So one thing I want you to think about is there's many different flavors of data people out there, professionals, okay? Data analysts are typically they're perceived as not necessarily scientific. A data scientist is someone that gets paid very well, extremely well, and a lot of industries can't afford to have those data scientists on staff, right? So what they will do is they will look for people that are data analysts but have scientific skills. They get that. They understand how to create hypotheses. They understand how to formulate research questions, and they understand how to analyze the data and make sound statistical judgments about that data. That's really what the industry needs. But a lot of industry folks don't realize that they don't need a data scientist per se. They just think they do. And a lot of times when the budget comes around, they say, I can't afford it. So keep in mind that when you take this boot camp, you're going to be learning a lot of, machine learning, which is traditionally scientific. You're going to be learning a lot of the statistical processes that a data scientist would know. So that gives you the ability to go in either direction. You can sell yourself as a data analyst or as a data scientist, right?
Or
Yes,
apply to your industry and just improve your business, your
absolutely.
operations, your business development, just giving you accountability of what you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, for example, to piggyback on what Yulia just said, as someone with an MBA, you've got to be able to make a business case for every decision that's made. And if you can't use the data to do that and do it in a way that makes sense, but also if someone questions you on your decisions or asks you to break it down further, that's going to be a problem. So being able to make a business case and a solid business case to satisfy your stakeholders is really, really essential. So this boot camp will allow you to do that. And then of course you can wow them with all the additional skills that you will have acquired. So that's something that's really important. There is a quote by the World Economic Forum, and there's a lot of them out there, but I just happen to pick this one. By 2022, 85% of companies will have adopted big data and analytics technologies, and 96% of companies are seeking to hire new permanent staff. Now, I did mention that I am a professor and I work with doctoral students and on their PhDs, and I'm actually their dissertation chair. And so the data science projects that we are working on right now recognizes all the existing literature that there's not enough skilled workforce in the field. And for example, even a place like healthcare and clinical pathology labs, there is not enough folks out there that have those skills because they're not able to hire specialists. They want their existing workforce to be able to acquire the skills. So we're finding this out over and over and over again. So these are just things to think about. The possibilities, are endless. And again, it's a great thing to know that, hey, I'm an essential worker, right? I'm essential. Okay, so I'm going to go through what the basic layout of the boot camp is. It's basically very intensive. It's hands-on. It's a hands-on experience. You get a mini lecture each week. We do a variety of different tasks, but they're all hands-on. So you're not just sitting there listening to me speak. We actually download data files. We actually code them together. And then as you experience the process, as you get stuck, I work to help you. And then of course, if let's say there are additional problems that you can't solve in your homework when you're working on them, there's office hours after hours. We'll have 1 hour a week where you can come into the Zoom and I can help you. But over 6 months, basically, you're going to be learning a ton of skills that basically all the case study projects that you're going to develop are going to be put up on GitHub. So you'll have a resume ready to push out for your next job interview or your promotion. So this is a 26-week boot camp. It's long. And there are 6 courses, but it's the proper way to do it because what we use is the CRISP DM, which is basically, it's a framework. We take it through the data science life cycle. So we go one phase at a time or one course at a time to show you how this process works. So the first course is data sourcing, feature engineering, and pre-processing. And what we do is we get a really intense look at data and what it means. We develop data dictionaries. We actually look at, whether it's continuous variables, discrete variables, all those terms that maybe you're not familiar with. I break it down and I give you a very easy way to understand it. So we do get into some of the tech stuff, but we're using Excel. How cool is that? So I'm going to show you actually to start the data cleaning process in Excel, and to use Excel at a higher level than you probably are used to using it. But it is a tool that you have to know in data science and data analytics. So we start with Excel because that, you know, is a comfort place for many people, but it's also an essential place. Excel is highly underutilized. I don't know if you folks are familiar with that, but there are so many tools in Excel that nobody ever touches upon. And yet those tools can be used, and those formulas can be used to clean data and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have a question for later. So Ryan, we will definitely get to your question. All right. And I'm glad you're.
Yes, I think it's nice just to give a quick break, just to have another voice sounding. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Otherwise, somebody will fall asleep. I know
Yes.
it's evening already.
Yes. Yes.
So here I am just entering. Excuse me. What I want to say right now, course number 1. And since you will address course by course, but each course is 5 weeks and it's only Wednesdays. Yes, Wednesdays only 6 to 9. This is your time commitment in the class. Those classes will be recorded. So if you miss it for some reason, you can get access to this, or if you forget something, you can get access to this. It will be published for your convenience. And those classes will be highly interactive. That's a suggestion not to miss those, right? At the same time, you have the opportunity for office hours. And it is so important to utilize the mentor who is just starving to give you as much as she knows, but it's all about you. What do you want to learn? She designed the baseline, which you must to have, but if you want to go beyond, sure, you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
So
Thank you.
just quick break.
Yes, absolutely. So, Yulia, do you think it's appropriate to answer these questions, or should we wait till later? What do you think? I leave it up to you.
I just want to have this session more interactive. That's it.
Okay, well, then why don't I address some of these questions, because they're really good questions. All right, so Ryan is asking, question for later, but I'm going to answer it now. Are we willing to work through higher math concepts? You love math, you're a math enthusiast, and like to know what's happening under hood. I guarantee you there will be higher level math concepts, but it's within reason. So I don't want to scare anybody away, but I think it's essential that you like math, because having that, you will be able to work with others as they have questions and so on and so forth. All right. As you know, anything statistical has to be looked at from a mathematics point of view. Okay. If you render a result, you have to be able to understand what statistical power do we have with that result. So, you know, there is, without, you know, getting too technical right now, there is a whole host of algorithms that the basis of those algorithms, for obvious reasons, are mathematical because of the nature of the machine learning that is happening. And, you know, whether it's linear regression or logistical regression and what have you, k-means, things like that. Will we tap into things like chi-square and ANOVA? Absolutely, right? So there's, but I don't want to scare anyone away. So I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it did. So there's definitely going to be a lot of math. Some of it implied and some where you can actually expand past where we go. So for example, when it comes to univariate and bivariate statistics and analyzing your data set from a visual point of view, right? That's something that we will be doing. All right, let's look at the next question. I mentioned in the series that we will introduce SQL. Will it be in the first course or later on? It will be later on. Jamie, that's a great question. The reason we do it later on, we actually start the process in course 2. All right. So, but we kind of keep it simple in the beginning, and we focus on formulas and we focus on the GUI, if you will. When we start pulling in data and we start, you know, running some of those inline statements, we will do it in Python. So that's why we're, you know, it doesn't start till course 2. All right. All right. Would I recommend Excel over Pandas? Now, here's the thing. I would not recommend Excel over Pandas because they're two different tools, right? So there you go. Or do they have a different application? Yes. So here's what I recommend. The rule of thumb is you always use the tool that is the most flexible. Python and Pandas is going to be more flexible than Excel. Where we're using Excel is when we first get that data and we first acquire the data and we want to get a general sense. And this is prior to EDA. This is prior to doing hardcore exploratory, all right? When we're looking at patterns in the data, doing an initial cleaning of the data, we're going to use Excel for that. We may flip the data in different directions and say, it appears that this data set presents us with X, you know, a generalized holistic view, right? So this is where we take that higher level view and we get a general sense for the data. And the reason that's very important in Excel is it doesn't cost a lot time-wise, right? But it also allows us to make a decision at that point. Is this data going to meet the business objective? Or do we need to source additional data? At that juncture, that's the point where you need to make that decision. And once you do that once over on the data, you can say, hey, we need a few features that are not here. Let's source something externally and acquire it, right? Or let's make some changes so that we are ready when we go into hardcore EDA or the second part of the process using Python, we don't have to backtrack and go back, all right? So they kind of work hand in hand together. The other thing is Excel is used, you know, once you have everything done, you can basically send out your CSV as a clean file. You've got the original if you needed to source it for some reason, but it's just nice as a workflow to start in that process. So that's a great question. Some folks will actually toggle between them as well. For example, you might go to a client and they don't have Pandas. You know, you have no external environment. You know, maybe, you know, you can use Jupyter in the cloud, yeah, but maybe they just don't want you going there. You know, for security reasons, sometimes they'll say, we would prefer you just use our stuff. I've actually had clients say that to me, and that's their comfort zone. So at that moment, you need to use what's available. And 9 times out of 10, they have Excel. And with that, we can proceed. So you always want to have that in your tool belt and to be able to use it, you know, above and beyond what you normally would use it for. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. All right, awesome. All right, so Juan says, I'm trying to change careers, currently pursuing a degree in cybersecurity. By the way, Juan, I teach that too. And I write curriculum for cyber. How can you get your first job in IT? Wow, so here's what's really cool, all right? I'm actually writing a course for cyber. It's actually it's 3 tracks. One is an engineering track, one is a finance track, and one is a healthcare track. Every single track has data embedded into it, all right? So let's say you're doing threat intelligence in cybersecurity. You're aggregating all that data. Well, you need a way to analyze it and analyze it fast, right? So the fact that you're pursuing a degree in cybersecurity is actually a good thing if you wanted to continue with that, because you can then marry that with analyst skills. Because you are, let's face it, anything cyber has data. If you're doing forensics, right? Threat intelligence, that's all data driven. You're looking at behavior patterns over time. You're doing a time series analysis. You're doing, you know, a whole host of things. So if you're looking to get your first job in IT, one thing I will share with you is that there is a lot of opportunities both in cyber and in data, and you do not necessarily have to have a high-level degree. You might even have just an associate's degree. I've had students that I've placed in jobs that just had associates. So there's some good workforce job boards that we can connect you with in Open Hub. And that's something that I think, Yulia, if you want to speak to that.
Later.
Later. Okay, so there are resources. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that for students that have gone through the boot camp, we're always, when we see a job and we see, you know, we put it out there for students, you know, we are kind of like the headhunters. We go out and we find the jobs and we say, hey, you were looking for this job. We found this opportunity. So we're constantly bringing
talking
those
about tribe and sharing resources, sharing is caring.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's something that will help you get that job. All right. So the second course is Exploratory Data Analysis. And we then go to Google Collab and we start working in a different tool, online environment. And I show you how to use that tool. And there's an obvious reason for that, because maybe you're working with a client that will only allow web access. They're not going to let you install Jupyter on the machine. They're not going to let you put Anaconda on the machine. And what do you use? So we explore Collab and some of the resources there. Exploratory data analysis is basically getting a sense of what the data is in its shape and form, okay? So getting an idea as to what data depth is present and what can we expect. Some of the basic statistics of the data, all right? But we spend 5 classes doing a lot of digging into a variety of data sets. So that's done in Google Colab. Then Python, we actually do in Jupyter notebooks, and I work with you on installing Jupyter on your machine. If you can't run it on your machine, that's okay. We can segue you to an online Jupyter instance. That's not a problem, so don't worry about that. But Python is where we actually start getting into the actual, machine learning thing. Yes, that's where we actually start getting into the meat and potatoes, if you will. All right. And we actually start building projects from top to bottom. All right. So from course 3 on, it's all projects, very intensive. Whereas course 1 and 2 is, dabbling here and there with a variety of different data sets, but it's not until course 3 till we actually take a project and we go from start to finish with it.
But saying that, you cannot say we are not doing projects on 1 and 2. We do projects on 1 and 2, and you will have something to brag. If this is the point,
absolutely right. But what I mean is there won't be any algorithms that are, in other words, there will not be
algorithms.
Right, exactly. Okay.
You will explore those algorithms, but you will not program them heavily. You will apply them to Excel or Collab, which is actually another IDE. Right. But professional IDE will be heavily used starting with course number 3.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wish we have the metrics showing like content, theory, exercises, and tools. It's like multidimensional, very multidimensional approach.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we are definitely doing projects in every single one, but as far as a completed project from start, a case study is what I mean. That we start with a case study in course 3. Course 4, we jump into R and we use R Studio. I walk you through how to work in the R environment, how to work with packages, how to keep them updated, and of course, how to do the same algorithms that we did in Python in R. So basically it's apples and oranges. What I can do in Python, I can do in R. Okay, I can do a full data analysis in Python, and I can do it in R. Some people prefer one or the other. If you're going to work in the industry, you want to know both. Of course, you'll have a favorite. We all have a favorite, right? But I'm going to show you both. And then in course 5, I'm going to show you how to marry them so they work together. And so in R Studio, we can basically use Python, or we can go the other way. We can work in Python and use R. So I'm going to show you how to install additional software and do it that way, so you can fully manage your environments and you can control what packages and what modules are being used in your environment and what version. That's the other thing. Keep in mind that software, all of these tools are open source, right now that we're discussing Python, R, and so on and so forth. There's so many folks out there that are putting out great packages that allow you to take your analytics to the next level. So it's a huge open source community. So I'm going to show you, where all those packages are and how to work with them. Course 6 is basically data visualization, and that's where we get into Power BI, we get into Tableau, we even do a little data visualization in Excel, some pivot tables and things like that. Again, why would I show you that? Because there is going to be some time where you have to present in front of someone, in front of a conference or a boardroom, and all they have is Excel, right? You have to be prepared for that. Well, how can you put a very powerful data visualization in front of people that are making decisions and wow them? Remember, if you're making a business case, you have to be able to put that wow factor out there, right? So that's why we do data viz and all different types of tools. All right, so we have another question. If you have prior programming experience, including SQL knowledge, would you say course 1 and 2 are necessary? Yes, I would. Now, of course, if you worked with SQL, you may have some understanding of stored procedures. You may have some understanding on creating select statements. But it is possible, and you understand what dirty data and garbage data looks like, I'm sure. but it is possible, I can almost say almost possible, probable that you will pick up skills that you may not have already. One is the data science lifecycle. Now, there is a software or systems development lifecycle. It is similar, but in data science, it is different. So learning that workflow will allow you to apply it in a very data-driven, specific way. So yeah, absolutely. I would say that, having that SQL knowledge will be great, because then you can wrap it in the other knowledge that you will acquire, and you won't have the additional, learning of the SQL. Okay. But again, having someone in the boot camp like that is a great asset for, it's good for us, and it's also good for you, because there's a lot of things I can tell you. If it was a pure SQL course, or the foundation was purely SQL, then, we would be teaching it as that. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. All right, awesome. I'm going to move to the next slide. All right, this breaks down. This is a very high level view of each course. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly because I've actually already said those things. So in the first course, you're basically going to learn methods used to source and load data. We're going to get data sets from a variety of locations. We're going to study the features and attributes of the data. We're going to do data quality assessments, including the documentation of that data quality, data dictionary in addition to that, data quality report out. We're going to use a variety of different data cleaning techniques in Excel to normalize the data in preparation for feature aggregation and scaling, which is going to happen later on in a further course. The sampling and also the univariate and bivariate analysis can be done right in Excel. I'm going to show you some of the formulas that do that, and also how to reduce your dimensions and what dimensionality reduction is, and also one-hot encoding. Now, I will tell you that to do this in Excel, there's some additional steps. And that's why, from an efficiency point of view, you will more likely, as you do this for a living, or you do this in your career, will utilize tools that are more efficient and less time consuming. However, if you're placed in an environment like I was recently, all they had was Excel. That's all they would let me use, given the nature of their work environment. I had to be able to do this in Excel. So that's why it's important to know how to do these types of things in Excel. All right. At the end of the course, you're going to be able to do those 4 things. And I think they pretty much speak for themselves. I'm going to jump to the next level, Python. In this course, we're going to work with the Python IDE again. And let me see, did I skip? I did skip. I apologize. The exploratory data analysis is going to be done in Collab. All right, so Google Collab is a very awesome tool. It has a lot of bells and whistles that for the fact that it's free, there is a free version. You will be using the free version. There is really a lot of great tools and ability for what you get for free. I have a paid edition or paid version, which allows me to crank a lot of data. So that's why I opted for the paid, but you will not have to do that. All right. In this course, we're basically going to apply statistical concepts using a variety of different analytical methods to gain insight, to do data pre-processing, to clean the data, to do some initial analytics that allow us to make inferences about the data, look at central tendency, look at the normality of the data, look at the distribution of the data, all right, and apply very important statistical rules to that data. Why? Because in order to select a model down the road and apply that model and the algorithm therein, we have to have a full understanding as to what we're working with. All right, so that's why exploratory data analysis is so important. The other thing we're going to look at is how to determine which variables align with the research questions posed. The worst thing that could happen is that you're working on exploration and not know what the goal is, right? And you might forget, well, what is the business objective? Well, we talked about that in the first course. So that first course, we're going to drill in, connecting and doing that feedback loop back to the original why did we start this project? Why are we doing this, right? So being able to align the variables with the research questions. And if you decide that you don't have the features that you need, how do we add features? How do we, get that data ready for the analysis process? We're going to also use graphs and plots to visualize the initial data exploration process and doing things to determine the statistical presence of our data, but doing it in a visual way. So we can utilize the graphs that speak to us in a visual way and tell that story. All right. Next, of course, is Python. We would be doing this in Jupyter notebooks. And because we did Python in the EDA class in Collab, so now we go into Jupyter. And what's really important is Python is an awesome tool that if you don't know Python, that's going to be a problem in the field. If you know R as a substitute, that's fine, but there is a huge requirement for Python. So that's why we built that into this course. There's going to be specific algorithms that we look at and a rationale for those algorithms. Given the business case and the business objectives, what algorithms do we choose and why? What insights are we hoping to gain, right? So for example, if I'm doing a retail example and I need to do a sentiment analysis on data that came in on the social media channel for that store, right? Well, how am I going to analyze it? Well, what type of process am I going to use? Well, that's a sentiment analysis. How do I know what my customers are feeling? That's sentiment. That came from that retail store's social media space, right? So we bring that data in and we analyze it. Why do we choose that algorithm? Because the goal was to get a sentiment analysis of our customers. What are they feeling? What do they want from us? What do we need to give them, right? So everything ties together. You can do, data analytics just for fun. I mean, that's what we do 7 days a week. But when you're doing it and someone's paying you to do it, you have to have some clear rationale. You can't just do it for fun. Or you can pretend. That's why we have multiple screens, and one's for fun, one's the real one. Anywho, so this is where we get into inline SQL in the data frames. So we actually embed SQL code inside of our logic so that we can actually use SQL and actually point to a SQL server to pull in data and to run queries. Again, a very important skill to have. Keep in mind that you can also point to other databases. So for example, Azure, or if you want to use an S3 bucket on Amazon, you can point to a variety of different places, pull that data in and apply SQL to that data. So having the ability to run SQL inline is also very important for narrowing down your data and doing a variety of different things, which we will get into. We're also going to do Python on a variety of different size data sets, because size does matter when it comes to data. You've probably heard of big data. And when you start working with big data, there are considerations because the algorithms that you choose are going to take a performance hit based on the size of the data that you're trying to crank, right? So you then need to, tune your algorithm to the size of the data set that you're working with, all right? So I actually work, believe it or not, I work with data sets that are very huge, and I've actually used them in Excel, and I curse myself every time I do it because I know better, but maybe that was all I had at the time, right? Yeah. There's a limit. We all know there's a finite limit, right? So it would be silly to open up, a data set that exceeds Excel's threshold for pain. You would then go to SQL Server. You'd go to the tool of choice, right? It's like if I expect, my Dodge Viper to act like, expect my Yugo to act like a Dodge Viper. I've had a Yugo. I never had a Dodge Viper. I'll confess, but I did have 2 Trans Ams. So. But you see what I'm saying? You have to use the tools that are appropriate, right? Yeah. All right. So, and of course, we're doing workflows as always. All right. R, the same thing. So everything I just said for Python, we're going to do the equivalent in R. So it's just a different tool. All right. So I'm not going to go through and explain this because I think you understand. Both have packages, both have modules, and so on and so forth. Marry the two together. Now we're using software called Anaconda to manage the environment and keep the environments separate, right? So we have one environment, we point to Python, we point to R, and we say, bring in all the best of both of them so that I can do my stuff, all right? So Anaconda kind of pulls everything together, makes that one universal environment. That is my work environment as a developer, okay? So I show you how to set that up and how to develop a workflow, and also on how to use R Markdown to maintain projects and communicate results to stakeholders. Our Markdown is a great tool for the visualization and the documentation piece. We're actually going to do a series of documents, including maps and a whole bunch of things, as well as an interactive web-based dashboard using Shiny. So again, when you're providing this insight to either your employer or your client, you have to give them all the tools that they appreciate. So being able to drill through the data using an interactive web-based dashboard is essential. We're going to walk through that as well. So much things, right? All right. Last but not least is the data visualization, and we talked about that earlier. Excel, Tableau, RStudio, and Power BI are all going to be used to do data visualizations. So that is something that you'll learn the quirks and ins and outs of each one, and make a choice as to which one is most effective. So we have a question here. Are there industry certifications associated with data analytics that you should consider? Yes. There are several out there, okay? They are expensive to acquire. They are not necessarily needed. Now, why do I say that? There are people out there that have certifications that don't have skills. I hate to say it, but it's true. If you can pass an exam, you get the certification, but you may not have the skills. And, if you want to get those certifications, you can. They are somewhat expensive. And there's not necessarily a value add unless your employer wants that, right? So if your employer says you need to get this particular certification, well, you've acquired the hands-on skills and all the theory. So you could sit for that certification and get it.
It's
All
quite
right?
often vendor dependent.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to explain. I used to be an academic associate for EMC, which is now Dell. They have their certification. All the skills that you will be learning in this boot camp are things that you could literally go and sit for the cert and take the cert and pass it, of course, right? Is it necessary though? I guess the point I'm trying to make is it necessarily not necessarily the case? All right. If you can do it, it's highly encouraged. I'm a member of several associations, and I will say that it's a great to have on your business card, but I didn't have to do it, is what I'm saying for me.
The more I see it, it's not so needed, but they need the skills are needed and experience, portfolio, library, experience. That's what needed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There are some employers that will pay for the certification, which is great. That's a value add. But for a lot of folks that are, experiencing, budget constraints, it may not be feasible. So, the point I'm trying to say is the skills is really what matters. Being able to point an individual to your GitHub projects and show them what you can do, both the source code and the actual packaging of it, which is important, is really going to have a lot of wow factor. And that's something where you could put it right on a business card or on your LinkedIn or what have you. And that's what they're looking for.
Thank you, Jack, for putting all this into the chat. Really appreciate that. We will address this later, but it is pay as you go. We just made it by modules because we want to keep it affordable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Do you have more questions to answer, or you want to make some summary? You see how she's powerful and she knows all of this stuff. She's starting to bring it to you.
Well,
it's all up to you how much you want.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, and I don't want to overwhelm folks, but at the same time, I'm very passionate about this. I have to say that as someone who worked in IT for 25 years, data drives the bus, but data is useless. It becomes dark and unused if you don't have the ability to get at what the data is telling you. And unfortunately, there's so many individuals out there that they just don't know where to start. If you're like me, I'm a framework kind of individual. I need a process. It may be iterative, but I need some kind of framework, to go through. And that's what's so important. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And you are very welcome. Great. Glad to share it. Glad to share my experience. Are there any questions?
Saying that, Ooh, I'm sorry. I'm pushing.
No, that's okay.
So this is the link I shared. Oops. Okay. How to find this link? I pushed
Yes.
myself out, you see.
There you
How
go.
to
That's
Yeah, how to get there. First of all, first page, but also if you click learn and you see bootcamp, so you scroll down and you see bootcamps, then you see the data analytics bootcamp, which we're talking about right now. And that's how it's structured. All the information is here. I know too much text. Oh, sorry. But this link was shared. And before everyone drops, I do want you to communicate. Was it any helpful? Was it useful for you? Do you have more specific question how we can just deliver the best to you just to make you successful? Because this is
here
the
we have a
point.
couple of questions, Julia. Can I answer? There's just two in the chat.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first thing, what time of day? It's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesday evenings. Office hours are 7 to 8 on Monday. And it's done via Zoom and it's recorded. So if you can't make it or that's something that, we put all the recordings up there. All right. The second question, can I speak on some of the projects that we will be working on? Oh boy. I will tell you that they are all business
It
related.
will take another half an hour. Are you ready?
I know. I know. I will
Let's
tell you that,
keep it at the end. Okay.
yes, keep it. Yes, yes. I will say that they are all business related. They are very diverse, so they're not boring. And I think you'll find them to be very enjoyable.
We want you to have the library to build the library of
Yes,
algorithms and data models, which you can apply to all cases.
yes. If you're familiar with business intelligence, we'll be doing business intelligence. We will also be doing, and I don't want to give the farm away. See, this is part of my, my surprise to you. Let's put it this way: you will have a highly sought after set of projects when we get done, and you'll understand them all. That's the key. Having the projects is one thing, but being able to speak to them is another. So that's the other piece. We're going to go line by line and nobody will get left out. And that's the important piece. And no one will be embarrassed if they don't fully get it. We go over it again, right? So that's something that, it's a sharing experience and it's a learning experience for everyone. So that's important. Kind of like a hackathon. It's kind of like a hackathon,
Shakund is asking about, do we offer placement related services?
Well, I'm assuming we mean from a job point of view, and right. And so, Yulia, I know Open Hub has a lot of resources for connecting students to have taken the boot camp to different jobs, right? Am I right?
Absolutely. First of all, we are trying to create the people bank itself to have you more visibility, but we also refer you as a student and we're bragged by our students, so we offer those students. In addition, we will have coding clubs and a lot of how do you call it, workshops collaboratively working on the jobs. For example, last coding bootcamp, last coding club, we were exploring resumes, just literally case by case, resume by resume, and going through what's going on with each use cases, and just showcasing how to do this, and just referring people to these specific jobs, because
We might
sometimes
even
it's
have
all about keywords.
We also might have opportunities to do maybe some hackathons. I'd be willing to support that, and where people can practice their skills for prizes, which again, it's a safe environment, right? We have another question from someone, from Dave. Would it make sense to take this boot camp if you don't have any background in Python or R? Absolutely. I assume no background. And that's why we start with Excel. So absolutely. The idea is that I don't want to say you know nothing because that's silly. We all know things, right? But I assume no foundation. So that's why we take it one step at a time. And if you've seen it before, and maybe you're a little rusty, you say, oh, okay, I remember this. Or you say, I have no idea, but I'm going to learn. So that's really how we do this. Okay.
And even if you have a lot of experience, that's the mutually beneficial when you bring your experience, but you will find a lot to learn.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. I do want to hear from our attendees until we lost some of them, if possible. Can we?
Can I say one more thing, Yulia? Because it kind of ties to what you were just talking about. I'm also willing to write a letter of reference for anyone that wants a letter of reference
Definitely.
for a potential job.
Yes.
I've had students reach out to me and ask, so I have no problem with that as well.
Same. And yes, you will receive certificate. And yes, we will be happy to brag you. How do you say it? I don't know.
Graduate.
Braggadocio.
And matchmake you with other people. I'm professional matchmaker. Watch
Yes.
out.
So for me, it was very good information tonight, but it would not apply to my job, and I think I'm gonna be in my job for a while, so
Okay.
I'm gonna pass, but it sounds like a great boot camp.
It
Thank you for the
is. It's
information today.
one of the best at the in the area, in the, I would say, not the local geolocation area, but in the industry, one of the best, because Cynthia squeezed everything into well packed. Actually, it's worth more than 2 years of college degree. I'm so happy about that.
Including geodata,
Yes.
mapping.
You can now you can address some projects if you want, because I know some open
All right,
data
I'll give
we
you
will be
one hint.
working.
Yes, one hint, plotting latitude and longitude, taking data and plotting it on a map, an interactive map that you can actually see the data in a particular geographical location and see the data points in that geographical location, all doing it with code and
Which
pointing it
is
out.
very useful for web development, just
Yes.
amazingly useful.
Yes.
Okay, can we hear from Ryan? What's your perspective? And Ruben, what's your perspective? Ryan seems like very qualified already.
I've had experience in all of the areas. I'm more of a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it's been superficial dabbling with a dilettante and an expert. So I have to decide where I want to go.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love this feeling.
I have a whole lot of skills which I could go any number of directions.
Captain Potential. Love it.
Okay.
The content certainly is interesting and informative and useful.
Yeah. In my case, I didn't actually get a chance to talk at the beginning, but I'm actually also someone who's gone through the Open Hub project, web dev courses with bootcamp. So this is really just, in my case, because I'm literally on the very beginning of my journey, starting my own business in site design. And obviously the data side is as things evolve, the data side of things is really going to be where, my skills are going to be needed rather than just building a website in and of itself, So, but like I said in the chat, I've never touched Python. Half of the things that you explained in there, I was not just went over my head.
But
So
you know
this
what
is,
PPM is, and you know what a KPI is.
I don't
You know,
actually.
you know what a PPC is? Pay per click, right?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, we did actually go into data analytics in a very basic way.
Google Analytics. It
And
was Google Analytics.
specifically Google Analytics. So like, beyond, putting GA tags inside of code, there was some information, but
But those metrics serve as a place to, when you gather your data, they categorize that data, right?
Right.
And see, so that's where I'm going with that. I'm sure there's going to be metrics that you're familiar with, and that's a great skill to have, a great background.
Right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Great to hear from you, Dave. I shall say, first of all, Open Hub's approach to these boot camps is to keep it modular. So one module is 5 weeks, 6 modules total. And as soon as you paid for module, you're entitled to take it a second time. So it's your right to take it second time. And we usually run one bootcamp per year. I mean, specific topic per year. So we're looking forward to have the second year going, growing, and just have you on board as soon as you take one. Brushing the skills needed, refreshing needed, but put it into work. You will find a lot what to put into work for sure. Jack, do you want to introduce yourself? Ruben, we never heard from you. This is networking
Oh,
time.